Well, I think that we'll go ahead and get started for the evening. And we'll begin with welcoming everyone. And I'll be your moderator this evening. I'm Kathy Wesley, and we'll be spending the next hour or so together and answering questions and having discussion about the about level 2 classes. This is the final installment in the program for level 2, and then the next program, the next will begin, I think, in the fall. So I think we're going to have a summer vacation, just like at school. All right, so yeah. So hello, Lama Yeshe. Hello, Lama Rob. It's good to see you this evening. And thanks also very much to Tashi, who's our host tonight. So the format that we usually follow when we do the question and answer is that people can write their questions in the chat. And they can also, I think they might be, they can raise their hand. They can use their raise hand function on which is under the reactions. So would anyone like to start off this evening with questions for this evening? So we could also meditate for a while, if that would be useful. There have been a number of classes, and let's see, I'm trying to think of what all the topics were. Let's see if I have those right here. So maybe you can think of questions on these topics. The first was the role of meditation in our study. The second was the foundational Buddhism, the history and terminology. Class number 3 was understanding the world and sentient beings. Then the next was the 4 foundations of mindfulness. The 5th class was the 4 immeasurables. The next was the 6 perfections. Bodhicitta was after that. And then relative and absolute truth followed. And then emptiness. And then the Vajrayana guru and student was the final topic. So if anybody has questions on any of these topics, or if you have a topic to suggest for a future class, you can also let us know about that. So the floor is open for your questions. You can put them into chat. Looks like we have something in chat. Let's see what's in chat. That's fine. Yes, that's fine. You can, yes, the direct messages are coming in. So if anybody would like to put a question, you can put it into the chat and we'll get it. You can also use your raise hand function, or just merely raise your hand if you're on camera. Okay, there's Barbara. She has a question.
Unmute. Okay. I did ask this in the chat, but I'll go ahead and ask it in person also, verbally. So during Lama Rob's talk on the 2 truths, he mentioned that a simple way to understand ultimate truth or emptiness, I think it was emptiness, he said, is to think of it as change. And I was just trying to write it's more like I'm trying to integrate this idea rather than ask a specific question, but I did the best I could. And here's what I wrote. Isn't change also viewed as a facet of karma, cause and effect? And I thought I remember hearing at some point in the past, and I don't remember where, that absolute truth is beyond karma. And if that's the case, if it's both, would this be an example of the inseparability of appearance and emptiness?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Barbara. Let's see, Lama Rob, would you like to start us off on this one?
As far as karma, yes, karma is a relative truth. So that aspect is true. As far as understanding emptiness, change is a good sort of simple way to understand it without getting too deep into the different layers of consciousness and so forth like that. I got a little confused with the last part of that question as far as the union of emptiness, and what was the last part of that?
Well, you also mentioned about the inseparability of appearance and emptiness. So I thought, well, maybe change is part of both, and that maybe that's an example of the inseparability.
Um,
Because I did understand how change could be a way to understand emptiness, but I also think of it in terms of karma. So
well,
that's right.
for something to change, it has to be empty, or for, whether you look at it as something, in order for something to change or to be changed, there has to be that emptiness quality where it can change. If it was not, it was permanent, you could not change. So then it would be outside those laws. As far as relative, as far as karma, though, karma is relative truth. So it's, if you were like dealing with somebody who was realized, then and then their ability to rest in their mind, they wouldn't generate karma. So in that sense, that's kind of where you're going with the unity of the two. Otherwise, that's, I think, the best I can explain it. Yeah.
Okay. Barbara, what do you think?
I can see changes, an example, like he said, a simple way to understand emptiness, first step, but, so I'm gonna go with that for the time being.
Okay. And Lama Yeshe, I see that you're here also. So would you like to add anything to the discussion on this?
Gonna quote.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to ask you to, yeah. Oh, you're not unmuted. Oh, yeah, you are.
I'm unmuted.
There you go. Now I hear you.
I don't have my muzzle on either, so you
Oh,
can.
my goodness. Okay.
Well, Tai Situ Rinpoche said this when he came into our 3-year retreat. He said that the ultimate is the ultimate of the relative, and the relative is the relative of the ultimate. Now, I'll let you decide what that means.
I like it.
Okay, there you go. I like simplicity. Situ Rinpoche is quite good with that. So I appreciate that.
Yeah,
I remember Kempo Karthar Rinpoche said to us one time that the easiest way to explain emptiness is to explain impermanence. So I'm sure that's related to change. I'm sorry, Lama Yeshe, did you have something else to share?
well, I have a saying, and that's because I'm a homeowner and a car owner, and I'm 79 years old. And that is because of impermanence, maintenance is permanent.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that everyday wisdom. I I think we've all encountered it. Well, during the answering of this question, we've had 4 more appear. So now we have some questions in chat. And again, if anybody else would like to add any questions, you can go ahead and send them in. They're reposting them to me, so we're good. Here's one. Wanted to ask about the difference between Vajrayana and Mahayana. Oh, Lama Yeshe, this one's for you. It says,
That is
Lama
right up-
Yeshe says it's like going through a mountain with dynamite and a bulldozer. Little confused here. I
Well-
thought Vajrayana was more of a secret practice.
Well, I was using an example that Rinpoche used, and it was that we have this diamond, this jewel of mind, unstained, perfect, excuse me, it has superficial stains. It's buried in the ground, and our job is to dig it up. And so in the Mahayana, we've got a pick and a shovel. And in the Vajrayana, we have dynamite and a bulldozer. Now, the secret is that you have to be very careful with dynamite and a bulldozer. And so you have to know how to use this properly. And this isn't exactly one-on-one example, but I like to kind of compare the secrecy of Vajrayana to the secrecy of a Shakespeare play. That, you can read a Shakespeare play, but unless you know the history, the language that was used at that time, the definition of the language, and a bunch of other things, you're going to come up with a meaning that's very different than what Shakespeare meant. And it is this way with Vajrayana, that it takes some level of experience, and little by little, as you practice it, you gain more experience and you see deeper meaning. And you frequently find, oh, I totally misunderstood that. So that's where the secrecy comes in. And then, of course, some of it is secret. That's self-secret. The other kind of secret is that if you know this and you misuse it, that's like playing with dynamite.
Understood. Thank you, Lama Yeshe. Lama Rob, do you have anything to add?
I would agree. The difference, one of the main differences between the Mahayana and the Vajrayana is the speed and the methods. There's more methods in the Vajrayana, and you introduce the nature of mind early or relatively early in the path, and you use that as your main vehicle for moving forward. In terms of like speed, for Tantra, the longest would be 60 lifetimes. So if you're really bad at it, at 60 lifetimes, the best, of course, would be 1 lifetime, as exemplified by Milarepa. In the Mahayana, you're looking more of, this is kind of hard math, but 3 times 10 to the 60th kalpas. And a kalpa is a cycle of the universe. So 1 cycle to get you to the first bodhisattva level, that's 10 to the 60th power. And then 10 to the 60th power to reach up to the 8th bhumi. And then to finish it, another 10 to the 60th power to reach Buddhahood. So, and again, that's cycles of the universe. So the idea is that it's much more faster, but also, as was pointed out, it's more dangerous in the sense of like a marriage. Marriage can be a wonderful thing if you marry the right person, and if you marry the wrong person, it can be very messy.
Thank you. Appreciate this. The next question is one that we may or may not be able to answer this evening. The person is asking if it's possible to take a Tibetan yoga class online. We don't have our Tibetan yoga expert on the call tonight, so we're going to have to ask him that question. That's Khenpo Tenkyang is our Tibetan yoga expert. So we may have to pass this question on to him and see if he has any response for it. But there's still more questions. So here's another one. How is Buddhism evolving with all of the changes afoot and also adapting to Western cultures? So I will open this to the two lamas, Lama Rob and Lama Tsultrim Yeshe. It says, how is Buddhism evolving? I'm not sure what changes the person is asking about with all the changes afoot. I don't know exactly what that means, but I think that it's enough to say also adapting to Western culture. Do either of you want to get started with this one?
Well, I'll gladly step in.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I just did a program at the Columbus KTC, and I used very, very few Buddhist terms. I used a lot of real life examples of various things. And the thing is that these stories I didn't have to make up because somebody's mind made them up. They were true stories that somebody else made up and believed. And so what I find, I sometimes give very technical talks, and sometimes I give talks that just use a lot of examples from real life. For instance, one that I used about how we project. A friend of mine told me this, who was an ex-Marine, I believe, and he's got a pretty colorful language, and he liked to ride a bicycle in the countryside. And he was riding one day, and there was a bag of trash that he saw on the road in front of him, and he got ballistic and started, when he's telling me the story, use words that I'm not going to talk about here. When he rode up to it and got a close look at it, it was a bag of fresh groceries. Bang. No more anger, because now it's his bag of fresh groceries. It's not the universe's bag. It's not the road's bag. He grabs it, gets on his bike, and he can't ride home with it because it's too bulky and heavy. So now he's not happy anymore. He's paranoid. He hides it in the brush because someone else might find his bag of groceries. Gets on his bike, rides home quick, gets in his car, drives back, stops, goes in the brush, happy because now he's found that he's no longer paranoid, goes home with his bag of groceries. Now, the thing is, that bag did nothing. It just lay there. Every emotion that he felt was a projection of his own mind. Now, I think that says a lot about Buddhism without using even the B word, or klesha. But there's so many things that can be expressed this way that I think just about anybody could understand.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Lama Yeshe. I appreciate your comment on that. Lama Rob, anything you'd like to add?
As far as how Buddhism is evolving, I think in current terms or current times, ideas like meditation are more in the culture. You can actually talk about that and not be kind of dismissed being too woo-woo or weird. So that's a big shift over time. It's more in the culture. You can talk to it. Medical professionals will actually, for de-stressing and so forth, we'll talk about meditation. So that's more accepted in our culture. I think other ideas such as karma, you can talk about karma a little more openly and say, well, it's not my karma or something like that, and people will be accepting of that. I think some of the ways that the Tibetan tradition will work with the West is still kind of ongoing. There is just a monstrous tradition and size and scope and so forth like that. And the West, we're relatively new. If you go back to maybe Trungpa Rinpoche, so you're talking 60s, 1960-ish, plus or minus. That's not very long for a tradition that's, we're a little bit under 1,000 years just for Karma Kaigyu. So it's going to take some time. There's translation, great texts being translated in English and then retranslated again. Because each time there's more nuance and understanding, and you need the assistance of the realized masters, because you need to understand what's the meaning behind the words and not just translating the words. And you have to go through not just language, but time that it was written in and the cultural context. And so all of that has to be taken into effect. So I think slowly over the years, it's moving more and more into the West, and kind of had an impact on the culture. I know Mingyur Rinpoche had done some Western style tests on meditation. And that's very unusual because Tibetans aren't usually that open to the science part of the Western way. And so him being willing to do that, and for them to do brain scans while he's meditating and so forth like that, kind of shows how they're opening to some of the Western style and Western way of thinking. So there's a little bit of change on both sides as they both kind of adopt to each other.
I'd like to follow up on that, because
Yes.
as you were talking, all kinds of thoughts came into my mind. So first of all, Khenpo Tenkyong, it'd be good for him to be here, because the last time he was here, we did Tibetan yoga in the pasture across the road with the donkeys and ponies of my neighbor. Secondly, I did a program at KTD. I think it was something like emotional healing, but I had workshops. I had a movement workshop that was led by a student of Mingyur Rinpoche, who was also a dancer, and he was gay, and he had worked through a lot of things through movement plus Buddhism. So we had a movement workshop, had another workshop by a person that did dialectical behavioral therapy, which comes from Marcia Lanahan. And she was influenced by the Zen tradition. And I think there was another workshop, and I can't remember who did that. Anyway, Khenpo Tenkyong was just new to KTD. He wasn't even president yet. He attended every session of every day, did the movement workshop. He did the dialectical behavioral therapy workshop. He did my teachings, participated in the questions and answers. Sunday afternoon at the end, he stood up and back and he said, "This is exactly the type of program that Gyalwang Karmapa would like to see at KTD."
Yeah. So there's developments everywhere from from all sides. And I think that kind of from my point of view, it is an adaptive process, and we're learning some of the methods, and we're learning some of the Eastern methods, and the Eastern folks are learning some of the Western methods, and we're all able to understand each other and have this mutual understanding, cooperation, and respect, and it's great. And I also think something that I wanted to share was that Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche said that when the English-speaking people begin to attain Buddhahood, this is going to be a landmark. This will be a landmark in the development of Buddhism in the West. And so I'm looking forward to those days coming in the future. And in the meantime, there is so much good work that's being done by everyone and on at all levels of teaching. It's really been amazing to see how Dharma has, as Lama Rob says, come into the culture and become part of it. Because if we think about the first Tibetans coming to the United States were in 1965, and Trungpa Rinpoche came in 1970. Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche came in 1976 and started teaching in 1977. So it really hasn't been that long for this to to have happened. And but we are making progress, and I think that it's really great that Westerners are able to do 3-year retreat, and I think we're all helping each other understand more. So thanks. That was what I wanted to add to the conversation. But there are more questions in chat. There is a question that we'll hold for later about asking us to share some experiences from 3-year retreat. We could get off on quite a big tangent if we jumped into that right now, because we still have other questions that regarding the classes. So if you folks don't mind, I'd like to move into the questions that have to do with the classes, and we'll circle back to this one at the end if there's time. Does that sound okay to the presenters? Okay, I'm seeing a head nod. Okay, good deal. All right, so it says, the person is asking, I appreciate the value in helping others without expecting anything in return. And doing that is fulfilling. However, sometimes in personal relationships, I feel left out if the other person doesn't reciprocate time and energy, I guess meaning the time and energy they have put into the relationship. And then the question is there a way I can look at this differently? I'm going to ask Lama Rob to start us off on this one, and then Lama Yeshe, you can join after.
Well, when you're looking for equal reciprocation, that's more of a barter or a trade. I give you A, you give me B. So there's a little bit of an attachment there. And that's okay. I mean, we're all like, we all have that aspect. So part of it would be to step back and ask, am I doing the right thing here, skillful wise? Is my action skillful? Because sometimes we think we're, doing the right thing, and we're not really helping the other person. So if we really are doing what we think we're supposed to be doing, really trying to be helpful, and we may have some attachment there, then the best way to do that, or one of the ways to deal with that, would be to offer that attachment to the gurus, or to the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas. And so you offer that up, and then it's no longer yours, and that attachment goes away. The other would be to take it as a metric and understand that this is just where your practice is, not being judgy, because that's another attachment. Oh, I need to be more pure, etc. And that's just a rabbit hole. So just take it as, this is where I'm at right now. And there is a wisdom and a self-understanding and being aware of that. And even considering that, and considering, that you're trying to act in a more virtuous way. Because for a lot of people, relationships, business, personal relationships, that it is a barter. It is a trade. And they can't see anything beyond that. So, being self-aware is great, and understanding, where you're at and what you're working toward is great. And then just be, you rejoice in your practice and how you're trying to move forward.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Lama Rob. That gets us off to a good start on a sometimes difficult topic. Lama Yeshe, do you have anything you'd like to add to the discussion?
Well, first of all, that was excellent, Lama Rob. And secondly, I've got a disclaimer, and that is that I was married for 21 years, and then I became a celibate monk. So with that foundation, I talked about that this weekend, and that is what's most important is to love yourself so that you're not looking for love in your partner, where it's not, well, I love you, therefore you have to love me. Where it's you love yourself, and therefore you've got lots of love to share with other people. And if it doesn't come back to you, it doesn't matter, because you have this love in your own heart. I heard a middle-aged Tibetan woman tell me this one time: if you have a warm spot in your heart for yourself, you will be comfortable wherever you go.
Thank you. Thank you, Lama Yeshe. I'm hoping the questioner is feeling some what's the right word? Some satisfaction at the discussion, because it's been really good, because this is really where Dharma meets what do they say? The rubber meets the road, right? Is in the everyday relationships. And I remember one time Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche saying that other sentient beings give us opportunities to practice all of the 6 perfections. So that's lovely. I see that Barb has her hand up. Do you have a follow-up,
Yeah,
Barb?
I missed a word that was sort of critical. She said, if you have a warm place in your heart for yourself, you will be what wherever you go?
Comfortable.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Okay. Well, there are still more questions, but we have let's see, 2 more questions. So folks, if you have other questions, feel welcome to type them into chat, because after these 2 questions are finished, we'll have some more time to answer questions. Okay, now this next question is for Lama Yeshe, so we'll get this started. It says, for Lama Yeshe, can you give examples of inauthentic, out of context things, he or she says books or stuff, taken from Tibetan Buddhism? I'm wondering if I have ever read any of those. Okay, so there you have it. Inauthentic, out of context stuff.
Oh, there is lots of that. I was chaplain at a prison, and part of my job was to review religious books that would be sent into the inmates, or to be sent into our library. And I'm not going to name names, I can't remember them, but there's a lot of, for lack of a better word, new age things out there that are rampant. And if you go to like YouTube and you find one and you watch it, then they will send a suggested list of 10 or 20 more that are just as far out. There are, how to get rich using Buddhism. There are how to control other people, um, umpteen different revisions of the Tibetan Book of the Dead. There's even a Beatles song that was taken from the Tibetan Book of the Dead by Evans Weiss, and just on and on and on. And then, of course, there are lots of what you would call false gurus. Again, I'm not going to mention any names, but let's just put it this way. I mentioned one to Khenpo Karta Rinpoche right after retreat because there was a book out and it kind of sounded nice. And it was endorsed by some Tibetan lamas. And Rinpoche said something to the effect of, be careful. So this is where lineage comes in. Read the Karmapa, read Taisitu Rinpoche, Traleg Rinpoche, Trangu Rinpoche, Khenpo Karta Rinpoche, people that they recommend, people that they mention. Rinpoche would not mention false teachers, but he would mention the teachers that he felt confident in. And he did mention Chogyam Trungpa, by the way. And that was pretty controversial. Still is. So lineage, listen to teachers that you respect, and then well, I heard Khandro Rinpoche say this. I attended a teaching of hers. And she said, in Tibet, the conventional wisdom was follow a teacher for 5 years before you become his or her student. In the United States, follow them for 10 years. But if you follow Khenpo Karta Rinpoche, Trangu Rinpoche, now these, of course, are dead. Gyalwang Karmapa, people that are invited to KTD, you can't go wrong.
Thank you. Thank you, Lama Yeshe. I appreciate what you're sharing on this. Lama Rob, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I think that was covered well. It's, stick with the lineage, the lineage masters, and there's enough material now because it's not like when we started where there just wasn't anything out there. But now there's quite a lot of books. Trungpa Rinpoche has quite a lot of texts for you to read. And Jongtrul Kongtrul the Great, I mean, you have his Treasury of Knowledge textbooks are being slowly transcribed over or translated over. And Traleg Rinpoche, he's passed, but I believe his wife has publishing more of his texts or his talks into texts. So those are also great too. And they're very geared for Westerners, meaning he was skillful both in the Tibetan tradition and the Western tradition. So he can hit it from philosophy of both sides. So depending on your disposition and so forth, that you may enjoy that. So there's enough texts that you can stay focused on the lineage and the authentic, transmission. As far as taking things out of context, yeah, karma, for example, can come across as fatalism. It's your karma that this happened, etc. And a lot of times people will borrow ideas and then twist them into what's useful for them. So it's also good to make sure we don't do that too.
Yeah. Understand. Thank you. Thank you, Lama Rob. I appreciate it. Well, there's one more question in chat, and then we're going to open the floor up for more questions. Let's see. The question is, when dealing with the 6 perfections, and I think what the questioner is saying is when practicing the 6 perfections, do we need to master the first 3 and then the others just fall into place? Is it listed in a specific order for a reason? Thank you. I can start on this one because I did hear that the order is important. The way I heard it was that each of these 6 perfect virtues takes us a little farther down the path, and that one leads to another. And so generosity is first because it is the initial practice of learning how to let go. I remember when Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche first started teaching in America, he said, I've met a lot of people who have a hard time letting go. He said, so if you're trying to practice letting go, he said, start simple, feed the birds, he said. He said, the birds don't come up to your door, knock on the door and say, hey, thanks for the bird seed. They don't say thank you, and you can get used to not being thanked. But even though he was joking a bit about that, he might not have really been joking about that, because I think there is a lot of this when gifts are given. There's a little bit of attachment and ego that goes into the giving of any gift, an expectation of that reciprocation that we talked about a little bit earlier. And so if a person learns how to give in the right way, at the right time, the right thing to the right person in the right way, which is how Gampopa explains it in the Jewel Ornament, if you can learn that, then the next perfection, which is ethics and morality, becomes a lot easier. When a person is generous, it's easy to be ethical. And when a person is generous and ethical, they become a person whose inner stability causes other people to trust them. Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche said part of the practice of ethics is inner stability, and that people who are ethical tend to be very stable inwardly. He said it's not like a person who you can't trust, because you never know if they're going to blow up and be angry at you if you say something. And so if a person has this inner stability and they have generosity, then patience isn't that hard. It's easier to be patient if you're generous and ethical, and because you're not trying to get ahead of everybody else. Then, if a person practices patience, which is forbearance both with internal and external difficulties, then diligence is a snap. It's pretty easy to be diligent in one's Dharma practice if one understands patience and the fact that practice takes time. And then, if diligence is in place, then meditation becomes easy. And if you then have all of these others, then wisdom is the result. And so that's what I heard from my teachers about the order of it. Now, there maybe this was a simplistic teaching, but I thought it was really helpful, and it still today helps me remember the order. So I'm going to open up the floor to the other lamas. Lama, let's see, I forgot who answered the last question. I think it was Lama Yeshe started the last time. So Lama Rob, would you like to add anything?
Sure. I mean, I agree as far as it's, sequential development as far as one to the other. Generosity being the easiest, and then wisdom being the hardest, which wisdom would be your meditation practice and the insight associated with the meditation practice. With that said, though, then you also don't want to well, I'm not going to meditate until I've perfected the other 5. That's not exactly a good approach. Ponlop Rinpoche, I think, had a good approach where he was do a month dedicated to. So a month that you would try to push your generosity, a month where you try to push your morality, a month where you'd push your patience, a month where you'd push your diligence, and then a month to emphasize your meditation and the associated, and then last, the associated wisdom from your meditation. So I think that's a good approach too, is it's if you don't want to get into thinking, I need to be perfect before I do the next thing. It's like, it's practice. If part of your wisdom is to understand the imperfections of your practice and to work with that. So like we talked about, generosity, not being generosity, but trading. I give you this flowers or whatever, and I expect you to give me something back, whatever, that is. A trade is a trade, and, we're a capitalist nation. But in terms of your spiritual development, it's a little different. So I think there's Jewel of Liberation, there's a lot of depth in those six. There's a lot of depth and study and understanding and actually practicing, and then being mindful of your practice as you're doing it so that you can understand, what you're doing well and where you may have some improvements, and to not get too caught up on yourself, meaning you're practicing, it's not going to be perfect, and to not like beat yourself up, which sometimes people have a tendency to do. And it's sort of instead where you find, areas that might want to improve, just acknowledge that and rejoice that you found it, and just keep working with yourself.
Thank you, Lama Rob. That's appreciated. Lama Yeshe, do you have something to add?
I think it's been well said. I have no more things to add to that.
I have one last thing to say, and that is that the practice of mind training, Mahayana mind training, called Lojong, is a really good way to practice all of the six perfect virtues, not necessarily in a specific order, but because the practice of Lojong involves giving and patience and ethics and so on. It includes all of these, just not in a specific order. It comes down to, if we read the 7-point mind training, the basic practice is exchanging oneself for other, which is the practice of sending and receiving, Tong Len. And so when we rehearse the practice of love and compassion, as we breathe out in the practice of Tonglen and give other beings a goodness, and we breathe in and remove the suffering from other beings, just this simple activity practices many of the six perfect virtues, all in an easy format. As Jamgon Khantrul says in his commentary, The Great Path of Awakening, he said the main point of all the Mahayana Dharma is giving up self-fixation. And all of these practices, that's what their main goal is to give up self-fixation, because as we know from the teaching on the Four Noble Truths, self-fixation is the root cause of all suffering. So I think I'll leave it there. Lojong is it's kind of got everything in it.
Well, while you were saying that, one more thought did come to my mind.
Sure.
That is that my monastic name is Soltram Yeshe. And one interpretation of that is, if I'm wise, I'll behave myself. And also, if you're wise, you practice generosity, patience, diligence, and meditative concentration. So actually, those first five all lead to wisdom, and wisdom applies to all the other five. And it's a feedback loop.
I appreciate that because once a person has come to understand the nature of things through wisdom, it makes it easier to practice generosity without self-fixation and so on. So well done. I appreciate that. Well, these are good questions, friends. Whoops, I just smacked my table here. Let's see. I see there is a hand raised. So hang on just a second. I want to make sure there is another question in chat. But Marianne, if yours is a follow-up on this, let's go ahead with your question first then. Oh, sorry. I have to ask you to unmute. Sorry about that. It's still not, let's see. Oh, now she's good.
Maybe now?
Yeah, we got you. Thank you.
Okay. It's not a follow-up to that. My question has to do with the student-teacher relationship and transitioning from a teacher that has passed away to a teacher that is still here.
Mm-hmm.
So you can go on with another question if you'd like, or
Oh, no, this is fine. Yeah,
Okay, so-
this is fine. Yeah. Let's see. I've already forgotten who started last time. Which one of you would like to start? Lama Yeshe or Lama Rob?
Well, I guess I was the one that gave the talk on Vajrayana teacher.
You can give that a try then.
I asked Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche a year or two before his parinirvana, who should I go to after you're gone? And he said, Gyalwang Karmapa will send somebody and he will be much better than I am.
Mm.
And of course, the thought that went into my mind immediately was, he can't be better than you. But then the next thought was, you break samaya if you start arguing with your guru. So I was between a rock and a hard place, and I just listened. And then I started opening my eyes, and I realized that, well, Karmapa said Khenpo Ujin, Karmapa said Khenpo Tenkyang, Karmapa said Khenpo Sanjay. And it's like, well, what else do you want? Who else do you want? And then, of course, you've got the whole KTD Sangha. You've got Lama Lodro Lamo, Lama Sultram, and a long list of, you might say, backup lamas. So that's
ahead.
my advice.
My question goes a little bit further than that, because of course I feel so incredibly grateful and fortunate that I have contact with all of you, and I totally absolutely benefit from each and every one of you. I know that. But I'm thinking, as a practitioner that really does want to progress, I should be working with a specific teacher that will get to know me better so that they can help me progress in a specific way. You know, that's always been my understanding of how the teacher should be, teacher student, you know, if you're serious about practicing. And I have been sick for the past 2 years and I wasn't really able to practice well then, but I'm getting well enough now that I want to try to make that transition. I don't know. It's like, I know you're supposed to sort of interview your teacher, you know, but it's clear to me all of you are so perfectly interviewed for me already. You see what I mean? It's hard for me to know because I'm ignorant about able to see myself as well as you would. You know what I'm saying? I can't just pick somebody thinking, oh, that's the person for me, because I know I would do it in an ignorant way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lama Yeshe, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, well, first of all, where do you live?
I'm on Long Island and I'm unable to travel right now. That's a big problem for me.
Okay, then it might be that you could do Zoom interviews.
Yes.
I would say, maybe start with Kempo Ujin with Lama Sanjay translating, Kempo Tenkyong. You could, any of us lamas that gave these presentations here for Dharma Paths, Lama Lodro Lamo. So that's where I would start with interview.
Yes, I appreciate that. Even I'm going to be a little tiny bit more specific and then let go of the fact that this is starting to sound like it's all about me and there's not other people here. I've always had a very strong connection with Kempo Ujin, but my concern is that, yes, I need a translator because I don't speak Tibetan. So do I specifically ask the office to set up an interview with Sanjay translating, or how do I do that?
Yes.
I can
Okay.
actually insert myself here because
Thank
I've
you.
done this for some of my friends, my Dharma friends. They've asked me to arrange interviews with Kempo Urgyen with Kempo Sanjay translating, and we've been able to do it through the office and also through Lama Lodro Lamo. So it's definitely possible to do. In addition, I have some thoughts which go back to the way that Kempo Karthar Rinpoche taught. I never spoke Tibetan and he never spoke English, so I always had to have an interpreter. There was nothing for it, but I had a lot of confidence that he had my best interest at heart. And you know what he did? He said the 16th Karmapa had given him, Kempo Karthar Rinpoche, a program of training to give to students. And that, as I started working with the program, when I started teaching, I asked Rinpoche how to develop students, and he said, well, use the program that's been developed. And interestingly enough, doing it just the way that Rinpoche said has really been helpful, because everyone starts with shamatha. Then he said it's very important for everyone to learn lojong after that, so that everything they do after that is done with the right frame of mind and the right attitude and the right motivation. Then people can begin to approach the Mahamudra practice through doing the Nundro. Then when people have finished the Nundro, they will be introduced to the support from the two main supports that the 16th Karmapa gave for Mahamudra practice, which is the practice of the Guru Sadhana of Lord Karmapakshi, and the practices of Mahamudra in one of the 3 training manuals written by the 9th Karmapa, all of which have been taught by Kempo Karthar Rinpoche. And so these two, what I found working with students in Columbus and elsewhere, is the program itself is very rich. And then the way the teachers interpret that, and then the way the teachers work with individual students, it will change and develop. For example, some of my Dharma friends could not do Nundro, and Kempo Karthar Rinpoche gave them deity practices to do as a way to develop the purification of negativity and the accumulation of merit. So there's lots of alternative ways these things get done. But I think starting with an interview with Kempo Urgyen would be a great start. So
thank you. That was really wonderful to hear a little bit the program, because I was not aware of that sort of progression, although I have participated in those things. And the last thing that you said about the deity practice, because I wasn't able at one point to do the Nundro also because of physical limitations. And you're right, Kempo Karthar Rinpoche said that's okay for you to do the deity practice, and so that's where it was sort of left there. Very
so
good.
you've got a good place. You're at a good place, and now you just need to keep going, right?
Yes. And I got to keep going. I want to keep going.
So you see, the question wasn't all just about you. It's about how all of us have to make, have to find our way and keep that bodhisattva motivation going. So you've got it.
Yes, and I hope that the question did help someone else in some way. For sure. Thank you.
We got some nods and some thumbs up coming.
Oh, yay. Very nice.
I'm sorry, Lama Rob, did you have anything to add?
No, I think that was well done. Just that, you know, when your teacher passes, that's hard. Because you're used to things being a certain way and you're like, oh, nuts. So I just, you know, part of it is just giving yourself a little grace, and as you move forward. Mingyur Rinpoche recently, he talked about his teachers, and he said that he's had 26 teachers. So I think that's something to keep in mind, is that there are others that you'll learn from, and it may take time to find, you know, the next relationship and be comfortable with that as you build that relationship out. But as long as you're, you know, tied to the lineage and authentic teachers, you know, it's all good information, it's all good understanding, and you only benefit. And then eventually when you find, you know, what you're looking for and build that, then, you know, then that'll feel much better.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Lama Rob. Oh, see, these questions have been just really marvelous. We have another question that's I think a really good one. This one, let's see. It starts with a quotation from the Mahamudra lineage supplication. Near the end of the prayer, it says, "To this meditator for whom all arises as unceasing play, grant your blessings that I realize samsara and nirvana as inseparable." And that's the quotation. Now here's the question. Are samsara and nirvana inseparable because they are both only concepts? So both are equally non-existent at the ultimate level? Or how do you understand the inseparability of samsara and nirvana? Lama Yeshe started the last question. So Lama Rob, would you like to start tonight with this one?
Sure. Did they post that in the chat? Or?
Yeah, I'm very sorry. Let's see if I can post it to the group. I think I can. Stand by. Yeah, here we go. I can do that. So I'll do that right now so you can read it. Oop, here we go. Here it comes. There you go.
I think the chat has an option, it defaults to
Right.
the co-host or the host. So
Now I tried to send it to the entire group. Do you see it now?
yeah, I see it.
Very good. All right. Awesome.
So granting, let's see, grant your blessings that I realize samsara and nirvana as inseparable. That would be the unity of relative and ultimate truth. So samsara being, of course, our mundane experience, and then nirvana, the cessation of suffering or ultimate nature of things. Are they inseparable because they are both concepts? When you call them concepts, you just made them both relative. Because that's the whole point of the emptiness and pure awareness. When you start talking high level meditation like Mahamudra or Dzogchen, you're just talking about pure awareness. And that would not, concepts would be more fixation, thoughts, dualism. So both are equally non-existent at the ultimate level. They're co-emergent. Or how would you understand the inseparability of samsara and nirvana? They're co-emergent, so the ultimate, I view that as kind of the ultimate and the relative, and they kind of need each other to be meaningful. The samsara aspect, our conceptual world, relative experience is still there, and the ultimate emptiness of all phenomena. So you kind of need the both to interact, or both, you need both factors sort of there to actually experience something. So I did the meditation example in my talk about visualizing the bindu, and it would kind of be like that. You really need both sides to actually experience something, the emptiness aspect and that the visualization aspect of the bindu. So there needs to be the appearance and there needs to be the emptiness. So I just view this as kind of another way of saying that sort of same thing. I don't know if that was helpful.
Does the questioner have a follow-up?
Yes, it was really helpful what you said about how one sort of defines the other. So you need both for there to be any kind of meaning to either. I guess it's sort of interesting because the way you phrased it. So you're saying that, okay, so it's because nirvana is the word we're using as a placeholder for the ultimate. They're not both concepts. That I guess it's a difference between what we think of as nirvana versus what nirvana, an experience of it, actually is.
Yeah, nirvana from the Hinayana perspective is like the cessation of suffering. So that's kind of how, when you use that word, you're thinking more along that line of you try to escape suffering. And so when you use that type of phrasing, whereas you're talking about Vajrayana, it's inseparability of appearance and emptiness. And so the words are a little different in terms of your phrasing. So I think there's a Zen expression after enlightenment, there's laundry. So the idea of bringing yourself back to mere appearance or the mundane sort of thing.
I once had I don't know, a conversation. I don't want to say an argument, but a conversation with a Dharma friend. And we were talking about this line, and he said, well, no, samsara and nirvana are almost the same, but they're not quite the same. And I said, no, I think that they're actually the same thing. Does that question have any meaning? Or, I mean, like, is there an answer to that question? Or am I just using semantics to try and describe something indescribable?
We always have problems with language. Language will always get in our way because we need to use language to describe something that's indescribable. We have nothing else except language and logic to help us understand things that are really essentially beyond our ability to express them. And this is because the basic nature of all things is Dharmachakra, right? And this is what's described in the stanza that is previous to this. Actually, it's actually the beginning of the stanza that you quote. The nature of thoughts is Dharmachakra. It is taught nothing whatsoever, and yet it appears as everything. And then comes the line you talk about. To the meditator who, for whom all arises as unceasing play, grant your blessings that I realize samsara and nirvana inseparable. So really it starts, my understanding of this stanza begins with those first words. The nature of thoughts is Dharmachakra, it is taught. They are nothing whatsoever, and yet they arise. To the meditator for whom all arises as unceasing play.
Your Wi-Fi is freezing.
Attachment, idea. Yeah, I'm very sorry about that. I live in a rural area. So this will happen from time to time. Do you need me to repeat from somewhere?
Yeah, you were maybe on the third line of the.
Okay, so yeah, so where the whole thing turns on the first line, which is the nature of thoughts is Dharmakaya, it is taught. They are nothing whatsoever, and yet they arise. To the meditator for whom all arises as unceasing play, that is the unceasing play of awareness. Okay, so the idea is that for a meditator who can rest in the nature of mind and not hold on to perceptions, not hold on to concepts, not hold on to everything. This is what Lama Rob was pointing to when he said it's co-emergent. Right now, everything that arises, we cling to. That's what I jokingly call co-emergent confusion. And co-emergent wisdom is when we realize the basic nature of all things is empty. And so it's basically encouraging the meditator to persist in looking at the nature of mind again and again and again and again to see that the mind is the same at all times, in all experiences, in all places. It really defies description. And it's beyond any of our ability to describe. And so this is why the first line of that stanza is really, to me, the most important, which is the nature of thoughts is Dharmakaya, it is taught. So the idea is that we start with a concept, then we have to actually begin to look at mind and see how mind really is. And this is why in the Great Path of Awakening, the 4-part meditation on the nature of mind starts with think of all phenomena as being dreamlike, seeing how the mind creates our experience. And then the next line is look at the nature of unborn awareness. Ask yourself, what's the color of the mind? What's the shape? Where does it start? Where does it end? And by seeing that mind is not a thing at all, and yet it's not nothing because it experiences, one begins to see the paradox that is this last line. The nature of samsara and nirvana are the same. And so we have to, through a meditative experience, come to understand how everything appearing in mind is nothing more than mind. But that's really hard because we're so used to everything having a meaning, everything having a place, and so on. The idea of it not being like that is it's beyond anything we're used to. But we can all experience that bag of garbage on the side of the road that turns into a bag of groceries instantaneously. And this is why that example was perfect, because that bag of trash turned into a bag of groceries, turned into a precious treasure, and became someone's property just through how they thought about it. So with that, I'll turn things over to Lama Yeshe.
Well, all I can do is just say the same thing in different words. But if you think about it, how can you have some things, samsara coming from one source and nirvana coming from a different source? And another example that I like to use that is quite simple, not complex, is what does a word mean? Well, you look in the dictionary to find the meaning, and the meaning is in other words. Even Dharmakaya is in there if you got a Buddhist dictionary. So what does Dharmakaya mean? Well, there are other words that describe it. Now, actually, Dharmakaya is beyond the dictionary. You can't describe it in words. As soon as you describe it in words, you're not talking about it. And then finally, when you're looking for the nature of unborn awareness, who's looking? So with those words of wisdom, I'm going to turn it over to Lama Kathy.
So I might add, there's what's called the hypnagogenous state. So this is when you're falling asleep, but you're not asleep, you're getting tired and your mind gets very sort of dreamy. You're aware of your mind and this dreaminess but you're not caught in it. And that's good. It's the closest non-meditative state to meditation that you can experience, or closest to nature of mind that you can experience without actually doing it, without actually meditating. In that experience, you can kind of get a feel for the dream part of it, which would be your thoughts, and yet you're still aware of it, but you're not thinking a thought, you're just watching. So when you go to sleep, if you start to kind of train yourself that way, it can start to experientially understand that there's a difference between thoughts and awareness. And instead, because otherwise this all becomes a lot of gameplay and wordplay, and then it feels like it's wordplay. And so the path that, Vajrayana does is introduce you quickly to the nature of mind and then move you along that path. So understand the hypnagogious state experientially can kind of help, maybe. Then you can kind of see, yeah, there are things other than thoughts and concepts. That
Thank you.
helps.
Yeah, thank you, Lama Rob. So Anitseki, any comment, or are you, what is it, overload? Are we on conceptual overload?
No, actually, that made sense. So thank you all. Yeah.
Yeah, lovely. I always encourage people to recite this prayer and see how each of the stanzas leads to the other, because when Trungpa Rinpoche taught on this at KTD in 1999, he gave just a masterful teaching showing how the entire path of Mahamudra is given in those central stanzas. Renunciation's the foot of meditation, devotion is the head of meditation, and non-distractedness is the body of meditation, and then the nature of thoughts is Dharmakaya. And these stanzas really are a way of talking to us about how we can eventually see the inseparability of samsara and nirvana through looking at our mind and meditation. So in the end, we got to study. No, I mean, I'm sorry, we have to go beyond study and experience mind. Thank you. Well, let's see. We are at 20 minutes past the hour. We have about 10 more minutes. We have run out of questions in chat, so I'm going to tell people that they can raise their hand, or they can use the raise hand function if they would like to unmute and ask a question directly. I see Barbara's hand is up. Yes. Mhm.
Hi, I have two questions. One's pretty fast and the other will probably have more discussion. And they were both from Lama Karma's talk. Of course, he's not here, but I'm sure any three of you, all three, whatever, can answer these. One of the things he kept talking about something paramita, and I think it was a text. And I was wondering if it was prajna paramita, but I just couldn't make it out, that first part out. Do you guys remember?
It was Prajnaparamita.
Okay. And then my other question that was triggered by his and one of the things he said, he mentioned that having a negative attitude while practicing is very bad for you. But what if one has negative attitudes or is in a bad mood for a really long time, like months? Should we avoid practicing, or should we engender, theoretical, this is how I'm calling it, theoretical bodhicitta to practice even when you're not feeling it? I'm not feeling bodhicitta, but maybe I know I should, and in theory I feel it, but I'm not feeling it in my emotions.
Hey, thank you, Barbara. Now, Lama Yeshe, would you like to start off the answer here?
I would really like to, yes.
Okay.
First of all, make aspirations.
Okay.
I might not be feeling very good now, but I make aspirations that I can be feeling good, that I can be a benefit to other people, and so forth. That's very important. The second thing is that now I came to Buddhism seeing a psychiatrist on an extremely strong antidepressant. And I learned a lot about depression. And if you are in a bad mood, the first thing to do is take a time out and look at the thoughts that are supporting that depression and start letting them go, or saying, "Oh, mani padme hum," and don't leave room in your mind for those thoughts. Generate, again, aspirations, but to take some action to not just wallow in a bunch of negative thoughts, because what I found was that depression took effort. I had to feed my mind with depressing music, depressing books, depressing television, depressing whatever, depressing conversations with other people. But then if I looked and saw what I was seeing, what I was thinking, it became like, why do that to yourself? So if you want, have an interview with me. I guess there's some tapes that KTC Columbus has that maybe you could view. Is that right, Lama?
Oh, are you saying from the weekend that you just gave in Columbus this past weekend?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
they-
they won't be ready for at least a week because they're being prepared with introductions and conclusions. But I believe it's possible for us to share the basic links online. So we'll see if we can't do that.
Yeah, you can wait a week. Anyway, that's my advice, and I'd be curious what Rod has to say.
So, yeah, I mean, I would agree. It's to feel a certain way, a lot of times that's you're caught up in your thought mesh or your thought net. And practice in whatever way can help break that, whether it's mantra or sitting meditation, just breathing meditation to calm the mind. And authentic meditative experience that in three buckets, they kind of different experiences. It can be pleasant, like they kind of group them as bliss, clarity, and emptiness. So once you've had some experience with that, then there's other states of mind, and you start experiencing with, well, the reason I'm upset or depressed or angry is because I have a certain sort of habit of way of thinking. And you start experiencing these other states of mind through meditation. It can be a breakthrough of, hey, there are other ways that my mind my mind can be. And so then once you kind of get that, then you can start to work with, letting that go and unraveling some of that thinking process. And then Tonglen was also mentioned, and that's another way, that's another technique too. But it has to do with our habitual way of thinking. And the more that we're mindful of it, the more that we can see it in play. And these other techniques, the meditative techniques, can give you the confidence that there are other states than being, depressed, or it can give you the faith, the confidence that you can escape your present sort of mental construct, your present mental situation. And all of these methods are very powerful. Different people will gravitate based off your disposition to one a little bit more than another. Love and compassion, meditation. Some people will gravitate very quickly to that. Others will like the shamatha, the tranquility aspect of it. mantra. In our culture, it's a little hard to go through the day, work day, if you're in an office doing mantra. Kind of making a scene. So you kind of have to be skillful with what you're doing. Another technique would be anytime you do have those states of mind, is you can offer it to the guru so that you're no longer attached to it. That can be another technique. I offer it up so it's not mine anymore. So.
I want to say this. I just put a little poem in the chat box.
I didn't see it. So, but I understand that I won't be seeing all of the things that are in chat. So,
Can anybody else see that? It's called Thought. I'm thinking thoughts of long ago. Is that invisible? How do I
I'm
post
afraid
them?
so. Yeah.
How do
I
I
think
post
only
them?
the our KTD host can see those.
Yeah.
I think
And
you can maybe change it to send to Kathleen Wesley, and then she's able to post to.
Okay.
try that. Yeah, try that. And then I'll post it
Okay.
for you.
I'm going to send it to the boss here.
Moderation. I
Yeah.
could say that I'm a professional moderator.
Okay. Now,
Oh, here you go. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I got that. Okay, now I'll post it for everyone. That's really good. Here it comes. Oops. Let's see. Meeting group chat. Okay, here we go. There you go. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeshe. Now, did you want to share something based on this, Lama Yeshe?
Well, it's not my poem, and it kind of what helped me see where I was going, or shall we say, astray in believing my thoughts.
I think, would you care to read the poem, Lama Yeshe, just in case people cannot read the chat? There may be a few who cannot read the
Sure.
chat.
I'm thinking thoughts of long ago. I'm thinking tomorrow what may be so. I forget I'm thinking. It's not thought, it's real. I forget that what I think determines how I feel. I'm missing life before my eyes. I'm missing beauty in favor of lies. What I see is me. I thought it was you. The observed exists only in the eye of the observer's view. The pot calls the kettle black because only blackness sees black. I remember I'm only thinking. I laugh and the thoughts are gone.
Thank you.
I guess to finish up on this, Thich Nhat Hanh talks about going on a diet in terms of what you're putting into your mind, not in terms of what you're putting into your mouth. But be very careful of what you put into your mind. And why not put in positive things? You've got a choice.
Thank you, Lama Yeshe. I think this brings us back full circle to what Lama Rob started with, which was that if you're sitting on your meditation cushion and you're in a bad mood, I'm going to try to paraphrase what Lama Rob said. Let's see if I get it right. You can make an aspiration. Okay, today I'm in a bad mood. Okay, I get that. But, may I be able to, in the future, and like the future in the next 3 minutes, may I have a more positive view? May I aspire to become free of negativity? May my practice help me to overcome this? Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche once said, The one thing about practice is you can dedicate it to anything. He said, Trong Rinpoche once said, if you don't like your attitude, you can change it. And like it's that easy, but that's, I think, the purpose of aspiration. Because the aspiration stands in for us. It gives us strength. The aspiration gives us the strength to see that there are other ways of being. And the aspiration gives us something to put on the recording studio of the mind, It gives us something to play that's very positive. And then Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche taught a technique with Tonglen. He said, what if when you're in a bad mood, you'd say something to yourself like, well, there's a lot of people in a bad mood right now. May my bad mood contain their bad moods, and may we all be free from bad moods. And he said that way, he said the negative emotion isn't positive, he said, but what you did with it was. Which I love. I love that. So hopefully this is helpful. Yeah, thank you for asking that question. It's an excellent question because we've all had that question. Some of us even had that question this morning. When we first started practicing this morning, we had that question. So thank you for asking.
All the questions have been great, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. The questions have been just really remarkable. And I'm so happy that all of you came to this space and brought your questions and your sincere heart, because that's what's behind all the questions, is our sincere heart and our sincere wish to practice. And I love it that we all have ideas and we've exchanged them this evening. I invite you to continue to practice, and invite you to continue to watch and rewatch the classes, and to bring aspiration to every part of your life, because this is where we aim. We aim our energy that way. We aim our wish that way. So we don't have conventional prayers to say here this evening as a dedication, but maybe we can gather together all of our aspirations and all of our questions and all of our pure bodhisattva heart, and dedicate all of the merit from this evening to the long lives of all of the great masters, and the attainment of Buddhahood by all individuals. So may all beings be free from suffering. May all beings become happy, and may all beings become Buddhas.
Can I say one concluding thing?
Yes, Lama Yeshe.
Humor. And so you were talking about feeding the birds. So here's my bird joke. At my house, if they run out of bird feed in the feeder, they all turn to the house and they go, cheap, cheap, cheap.
There you are.
So keep laughing.
Thank you so much, Lama Yeshe. And thank you, Lama Rob. And then also thanks to all of you who attended, and thanks to Tashi, who was our Zoom host this evening. And we'll see you again. Watch your KTD newsletter for the class schedule for the next level. They're going to be good topics, and I think you'll enjoy them. So thank you. Om Mani Padme Hum, Karma Pacheno.
No.
Thank you, friends.